Mr. Joe Marsh, what a pleasure it is to have you today. We thank you a lot for your time, for sitting down with us, and we'd like to ask you, how are you finding the event so far?
Thanks for having me. The event's been awesome. I think this is my second trip during the event. The first time was when the league team was here early in the event, and everything's been first class. I mean, the players themselves have commented a lot on facilities, infrastructure. They really fell in love with the player lounge, somewhere where they can just play FC24 and ping pong and just be themselves and not be on, and have somewhere to kind of relax, which is great. But between the stadiums, everything's been really wonderful to kind of experience in person and live. And I think right now we're sitting in the top three. I know we'll probably fall a little bit in the team standings, but we only entered 4 teams into the event and won one and came in second in another. So pretty good for our first kind of toe dip. And we'll see if we can have a bigger presence in 2025. But it's been really great.
Hopefully, we can see a great presence, and we're very glad to hear that you're enjoying the event, and the players have very good remarks about it. I'd love to get a glimpse into the South Korean market. Now in 2019, as you joined T1, how has it been since then, and how have you seen the Korean market develop in regards to esports?
Yeah, I mean, well, South Korea has been kind of the hub for esports for so long. I mean, we're a 20-year-old organization, so I've been running it for almost 5 of those years. And when I got to T1 in 2019, the infrastructure for T1 wasn't in place. Historically, it was part of SKT, and it was SKT T1, and it was inside their sports marketing division. And our office and training center was 45 minutes north of Seoul, in the kind of the Kao area of the country. And other than the trophy case, you wouldn't know world champions were raised there. Mismatched desks, PCs, chairs. It just wasn't what you would expect for a professional organization at the time. And for the past 5 years, we've had to staff up completely. Once we did the transaction with Comcast and SK Telecom, it was really, you got a League of Legends team, a couple other teams that we ended up cutting, and then that was really it. We had to hire full staff. We had to build out infrastructure. We built a beautiful facility, 11 stories tall in Gangnam, which is the business district. Wow. And since then, gaming is a big part, but a small part of the organization overall. We've launched our Esports Academy, T1 Esports Academy. We've launched our PC Bong T1 Base Camp, which is the #1 PC Bong in all of South Korea. And there's like 6,000 PC Bongs. We're opening up a second location this year in Busan. We'll open up a third location in conjunction with CGV, which is a big movie theater partner, part of CJ Entertainment. We've launched a merchandise business. When I got to T1, you couldn't buy a T1 shirt. Like, we didn't sell anything. I mean, so just little things that you would come to expect now, 5 years later, from the whole industry, we weren't doing. And I think, we took a lot of heat early on for professionalizing the sport and the team in the market. And it's always tough being first through the door, right? Like, you're always going to get hit the most. But things that we took a lot of heat for early on in 2020. It's table stakes for teams now. You're expected to do content and work with brands and partners. You're expected to sell merchandise. You're expected to interact with fans. And those weren't the norms back then. It was really something that we had to change the shift of the market. And I think T1, we like to lead from the front with those things. We don't mind taking the arrows as long as we can grow the industry and grow the business. And something as simple as sponsors putting cash into the market versus trading out equipment. Like, little things like that go a long way for an org as you try to grow and expand and make it a real sustainable business. Because once you're not a marketing engine inside a conglomerate and you're a standalone business with a P&L to manage and board members to make happy, you have to find ways to grow the company, grow the revenue, and grow your brand exposure. And we've done a really good job, I think, as a staff and an organization of growing our brand reach. Probably one of the most popular teams in the world, one of the most popular foreign teams in China. Obviously, Faker's the biggest athlete in the world, and that certainly helps. But if you see the opportunities that were provided for the rest of the org and the other teams that we've had, all boats have been rising because of the infrastructure and apparatus that we've built at T1 to professionalize the gaming side, but also grow the business side.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for the detailed answer. And just to also kind of follow up on that subject. So after entering the Korean market, is it safe to say that the talent was there, but they kind of needed an extra hand in organizing and basically meeting the potential that they actually have?
Yeah, the talent, I mean, was certainly there then, and it's definitely there now. I don't know if they needed a hand. I just think a different viewpoint of how to do something. I think gaming in Korea is so old, right? Like they've been doing it forever. They've had some of the biggest events in the world. But historically, teams have been part of conglomerates. They were marketing engines to attract younger fans. You look at KT Rolster, that's owned by KT Telecom. You look at Hanwha Life, which is an insurance company, SKT at the time. Samsung owned a team. There was a different initiative for being in gaming. And I think once you started seeing VC money or outside investment come through, the parameters change of like what it meant to have a good investment. So I think what I did coming from the Comcast side, where we own sports teams and have sales agencies, was to really kind of bring that mentality of how we were doing business in traditional sports, tweak it for the market of Korea, and then slowly grow it. Not everything translates from traditional sports to esports and vice versa. We're significantly younger fandom. We're digitally focused. We don't pay for media rights. Esports is free to watch versus traditional sports where you're getting paid lots of money from media companies. But I think for us, it was just about finding the right metrics and measurements to push the movement forward in Korea to really embrace kind of the next generation of what gaming looks like. And gaming right now in 24 will look different in 2030, right? So,
of course, yeah.
But it's significantly different than when it was in 2019 when we first got there. And having the global pandemic too, like certainly was a wild card that none of us expected. But while traditional sports shut down, gaming kept going. We were just online, and I think that was a testament to our industry and the opportunity that we had to be able to keep going while everything else was shutting down around us.
Oh, that's amazing. And how long do you think it kind of took until you had a better understanding of the South Korean market, and where you felt very comfortable to start making further business decisions and taking more steps towards the South Korean market?
Yeah, I mean, we got into gaming at Comcast Spectacor in 2018 with the Overwatch League. It was Blizzard Activision's league. That was in January. By March, it was our first trip to South Korea. We kind of realized pretty early on that like South Korea is where it needs to be. And we made our first trip in March. Our second trip was October at Worlds that year in 2018, which ended up having to be like the worst year for South Korean esports and Worlds. Like T1 didn't even qualify for Worlds. The other teams got knocked out. It was actually the best year for Western teams. I think Cloud9 made it to semifinals that year. And we were meeting with Riot, meeting with different businesses and partners. And the last group we actually met with was SK Telecom.
Okay.
And we gave them our vision of where we thought gaming was going. They gave us their vision of what they were trying to do, is they were trying to spin T1 out of the conglomerate to be a standalone business. And then at that point, we kind of said, hey, let's do this together. It took a year to finish that transaction because of the complicated nature of international deals. And
of course.
But it was a blessing a bit too, because I had for a whole year of 2019 until we closed in October to go to South Korea to learn the market, to like see where what we were going to do. And one of the first things we did before we even closed the transaction was implement a content team inside of T1. We weren't doing our own content. We weren't telling our own story. And in gaming, and teams especially, storytelling is such a big part of connecting with your community and fandom and how you grow your fandom. So that was a big one we did right away. And then over the next few years, that's when we started adding businesses, especially as the pandemic eased up, launching our Esports Academy in late 21, launching our PC Bong last year in May. Merchandise business launched in January of 20 right away because we want people to be able to buy a jersey of T1. So, and then implementing corporate partnerships, that was a right away thing because we weren't, other than a couple internal partners, having no external partners was kind of holding us back. So. Bringing those all in. So slowly over the years, we added businesses, added opportunities, and then this past year with launching our first ever live event, T1 Homeground, where we had a regular season match that we hosted at a 7,000 seat venue when normally our matches are played in front of 400 people.
Wow,
so
that's an incredible move.
Yeah, so we're going on a tour. We did a Red Bull tour last year in Germany. We're going to Hong Kong this year in September. We're going to Paris with Red Bull again in December. So we launched our own convention, T1 Con, tried that. We did music projects where we had music videos and songs. We did a webtoon called The Challenger, which was basically Ready Player One meets Harry Potter. It was like Faker as an old professor and lived in a virtual and physical world. So along the way, we added these things, but it just takes time. As much as you want to, eat the shark all at once, you got to take small bites, and then eventually you'll get it.
Especially when you're trying to achieve many of the great things that you have mentioned, which you have already achieved. Stepping into the international market and expanding with. You mentioned the 11-story building that you have in South Korea, which is very impressive also. And also, since you mentioned Faker, I'd also like to ask you, how important has it been to keep a player very close to the organization?
I mean, it was the first priority when I got to T1, when I re-signed Faker to his contract and we gave him an ownership stake in the company. I think that was really important to make sure that our goals were aligned. And, when he renewed his contract for 3 years after 2022 and we increased his ownership stake, it was so important to be aligned both from a competitive standpoint, but from a business standpoint too. Faker's on the later stage of his career, but I wouldn't say done by any stretch, but it was important for the guy who helped build the organization to really benefit on the upside of everything that we're kind of creating on the back of it. So, and we have a lot of great projects that we're working on him personally on, and some of those will launch probably in 2025. That'll be big news in the industry, and I hope kind of changing kind of the game a little bit. But it was super important to keep him engaged. It's a bit of a family affair. It was important for me to develop a relationship with his father, his uncles, especially his grandmother as well. This family is a big part of Faker's life, as is with a lot of our gamers in South Korea. It's a family affair. Their parents are their agents. Their parents come to the matches and attend. They can come to the facility anytime they want. So it's really important, and to make sure that Faker was happy that he had what he needed, both as a player but as a co-owner. So hearing him ask questions about revenue projections and financials, it's been great to see, and we're lucky to have him. And there's every year where some team looks to acquire him or try, but he's been loyal to T1, and we've certainly been loyal to him, and it's been a great, I would say, partnership.
That's amazing, and we hope to continue seeing both of you together.
Me too.
And on the note of that, how hard is it to create legacy players in the esports?
It depends on the volume of winning you do. I think that's the biggest thing is, Faker became Faker because he won early and he won often. And, I think you look at some of the players that we have now that they've been together, this is their 4th year, and they all they fell short at Worlds together. They won Worlds last year. 2 of them got gold medals at Asian Games along with Faker. And I think it's not just about being a good player, because there are plenty of good players, just like in traditional sports, but not every player gets to win a championship. And it takes a perfect storm of team chemistry, ability, the meta of the game you're playing, and luck to win. The best team doesn't always win, right? I think you look at last year where JDG was on a golden road and it was winning every single event, and they ran into us as the last hope of South Korea in South Korea, and we were able to beat them. So on any given day, especially in Korea, a lot of our toughest matches are with our teams in our own region. Just because you, on paper, are the best team doesn't mean you're going to win. It's really a reason why a lot of the super teams tend to fail, because chemistry is so important. And I think what we've been able to do with this roster, and they've been together for 4 years, that's a big deal in the space where typically if you have any kind of faltering, you change your roster. And for us, where we finished second so many times in a row, both domestically and internationally, and then to finally break through last year, the human nature tendency is to I have to break this up. But our staff and we looked at it and said, what, this is the right roster. We just need to have the right luck on our side and catch the wave at the right time. And sure enough, last year was kind of that opportunity. And I think for us too, as an org, being humble but confident, we have a phrase, humble confidence, that we say before when we're talking about upcoming matches or opponents, because we were Worlds 22, we were overconfident. Once we got to finals, we thought it was a done deal because we beat that team all year, and we ended up falling short in an epic 5-game set. But if you were a gaming fan, and that was the first time you've ever seen League of Legends, that was probably the greatest game of all time, and we were on the losing end of it. So from a business perspective, I understand that was a good opportunity, but we try to be humble in the sense that there's expectations on us, both from ourselves, our fans, and globally, that if T1's showing up to an event, they're going to win. We saw it here at EWC as well when we participated in the first week. our expectation, whether we're struggling or not, is that you have to win. And for lesser people, it might be a weight that they can't handle. But for people to play in T1, you have to have a certain mindset and mentality that allows you to work through that. And you look at guys like Gumayushi, our 80 carry, he has some of the best mental I've ever seen. Faker, his mental has been going strong for 11 plus years. You need that mental strength as well as your physical abilities in terms of how fast you can move those hands. But your mental is probably the most important part of what separates a good gamer from a great gamer from a legend.
Wow, that's I think that's very deep, because many gamers may overlook or may not understand the importance of the mindset, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Especially if it's very competitive gaming, and if gaming is taking that big of a part in their lives. Also, I'd like to touch up on when you brought up the chemistry between players.
Yeah.
So can the importance of chemistry between players in a team sometimes surpass the importance of the strategy and other stakes involved in basically trying to achieve and win further?
Yeah, because I think you're going to see your teammates more than you're going to see anybody else, right? You're with them every single day. You're practicing 6 to 8 hours a day. You're with them, and just like I don't know if you have brothers, but like I have a brother, or even a sister. Like brothers and sisters fight with each other.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to agree all the time, but at the end of the day, you're family.
Yeah.
And when the world's against anybody else, like your brothers and sisters have your back. And I think that is the mindset we've tried to develop at T1, where whether they have disagreements on strategy or this or that play, or at the end of the day, when their backs are against the wall, the 5 of them know that the person next to them is going to get their back. And I think that's so important, because gameplay-wise, okay, that it happens, and sometimes strategy-wise, you might read the meta differently, right? Or you might pick something, or to the outside world, it looks weird or different, and you never know, right? Any given day, anyone can win. But I think from our standpoint, having those relationships are super important, because it's tough to win when you don't get along.
Yeah.
Like if you're fighting internally all the time, it'll bleed out eventually on the rift or on the pitch. Like, so for us, developing a culture and a mentality where everyone is free to express themselves and air out any kind of issues they might have. We talk that out. We have sports psychologists. Our coach Como is a legend. He does a great job of kind of managing all the different personalities. And at the end of the day, you're dealing with young stars, right? Who everyone's telling them that how great they are, and the fans are saying how great they are. And sometimes you believe those things, right? And then it's up to your brothers to humble you when you need to be humble, but also lift you up when you need to be lifted up. And I think our guys do a great job of that as a collective.
That's amazing to see how a great of a brotherhood there is inside of T1, and how basically all players help each other and would like to see each other grow, which is a big part of the team's success. And where do you see the future of esports in the next 5 years?
I think with what the EWC has shown the world, I think this is the first time we've had a large scale event all in one place with all the different titles. As publishers look to de-risk themselves from the cost of running esports and producing esports, I think you're going to see a big shift towards third parties operating tournaments for the proper leagues, a model akin to what Valve does with Dota or CSGO or CS2 now. I think you'll see teams get more opportunities to host the home games, to have additional revenue streams like that. I don't think esports will ever receive media rights like they do in traditional sports, so it'll always be free to consume. But I think the storytelling will be different. You're seeing a big shift towards leveraging content creators to be kind of a co-caster to cast the games. How does that look moving forward? I think you need to see more large-scale international events. Mm-hmm. In the current league format, there's really only 2 international events, and most teams only qualify for the one because MSI is pretty tough to qualify for. I know they're implementing a 3rd event next year, which again, only a small handful of teams get to go to. So I think I would love to see a shift towards less regional play and more international play, more tournament-based, things like that, just to change up the kind of the cadence of it. It gets to be monotonous and stale after a while, and you have the same 18 games in a split, and then the 6 teams make the playoffs, and it's a bit of rinse repeat. So I would love to see the different formats change for different games. And I think you're going to see different regions come online and people, having the ability to bring some of the big matches to their home markets from outside of taking games from Korea, bringing them to somewhere else, games from Europe, bringing them somewhere else. So I think there's more of a receptiveness to that now as the kind of the quote unquote esports winter has kind of ended, and now teams are kind of settled into where they are in their lot. How do you grow those brands? Because I think the most important part is it's tough to create new brands in 2024, and then the teams that do have the big brands, they're able to kind of sustain and weather the storms when they come and help grow those brands. So I'm hoping to see some fundamental shifts and changes from the publisher side. I would love a more robust in-game economy for teams to benefit from in-game items to help fund their ventures and pay these players salaries and give them upside. I think there's a missed opportunity there where there's only a fraction of gamers that are esports fans, and there's a larger pool of people that aren't being serviced or reached. And I think if you make esports and the game itself more connected, you'll see that rise. Our world skin from last year just released in the store, and there might be fans that don't necessarily follow esports, but they'll buy those skins. Yeah, and I think we have to reach those fans to get the game from 1% esports fans to 20%. So that's a shift what we need from the publishers. And I think also, the one that's always everlasting is the toxicity in gaming. I think, as a father of two girls, you want them to be able to game without being harassed in chat, right? Course, so I think publishers, along with teams, have to do a better job of kind of policing their communities and games to make it more inviting, so you can have more players in your pool and kind of grow that appreciation for the games.
Amazing answer. Thank you for that. And it is very important to touch on the importance of basically how toxicity can be found within gaming, and that it's not a place where it belongs in gaming, obviously, because gaming should always be inviting. And I believe many people may not step into gaming, or may not feel invited to step into gaming because they see examples of toxicity here and there. So previously, since you mentioned that you've been expanding, the operations, the skins, the business in South Korea. So in the last few years, we've seen some esport organizations basically expand across the globe under global identities or global logos, brands, sorry. So what are the next plans for T1, knowing that you've already been expanding globally and you've already built a name for yourself globally? So what next steps does T1 have in regards to international expansion and global reach?
Yeah, I think for us, we tried to be too global early on at T1 when we first did the transaction, because we were half American owned, half Korean owned. So that didn't work out because we had no infrastructure. I think that's the biggest thing, is when you're in a world where you're competing in someone else's home market and they have the facilities and the reach and the staff, it's hard to just throw money at things because it's not going to go anywhere. So we kind of moved back to Korea, centralized our operations. I think we've done a good job in our home market. We've expanded and toe dipped a little bit. I think next for us is kind of figuring out where the hub will be, where we can collaborate and work with other teams. I think it's tough to enter a market as T1 by ourselves, but if we have 14 of our closest friends all working in the same market, it makes that collaboration that much more important. I think there's opportunities in the kingdom right now that are being talked about that would give those teams opportunities to create those nexuses and those hubs where the collaboration part is so important, because we only see each other once or twice a year, and usually it's at a competitive event where it's difficult to kind of interact with each other, because especially for us, like our focus is singular on winning, so we're not very fun to be around in that sense. Or it's at an industry event where it's like everyone's talking to each other for a couple minutes. If there was a centralized location where teams had bases where everyone can interact on a large scale in a meaningful way, I think that is what we're looking for. That's why we're looking around opportunities here. I know other teams are as well. That'll give us a hub outside of our normal base in South Korea, in a region that is completely underserved. It hasn't had servers yet, and they're finally getting them. And it gives us access to not only the Middle East, but also to Europe. Yeah. And I think for us, those are two weak points that we have, in terms of we have fans in both the regions, but we have no hub. We're competing against teams. Some of the biggest teams in the world have hubs and operations and staffing, and this would allow us to have operations, staffing, facilities to bring teams into, to have game teams stay at, to have teams live here. So that's really what we're looking for. A lot of our media expansion things we're doing on the media side, that'll keep going, and that's more global with working with streaming partners and things like that. But looking forward to kind of expanding operations is really important.
It's amazing. We're all looking forward to seeing how T1 can expand. And last but not least, so we're hoping to be seeing you in EDI Lisbon in Portugal. And so what are you hoping to be doing there, or what are you hoping to be seeing in the event there overall?
Yeah, so super honored to kind of give a keynote there with my COO, Josh Owen. He's helped really hand in glove me build T1 to what it is today. I think for us, we want to go tell the T1 story. We're like a lot of orgs, we're raising capital right now to fund those expansions, and I think people might not necessarily know the T1 backstory. They know, where we were. We're 20 years old, but like we've had the 3 different iterations. We had the first one when it was SKT owned. We had this generation right now, the 2024, and where we want to go. And I think to be able to tell the story to folks in the industry, to people hear what we're trying to do at T1, how we're doing things differently. Competitive success always helps give you a larger microphone, then people want to talk to you, which is great. We don't typically use those microphones, but this will be the first time we're really kind of getting out there and talking. And it's tough to talk about yourself and your company a lot, but it's a necessary part of growing, and we're just excited to tell our story and get people excited about what we're trying to do at T1.
Well, thanks a lot for your time, Mr. Joe Marsh. We really appreciate it.
Thanks
we
so
hope
much.
you have an amazing remainder of the event.
Thank you.
And thanks a lot for being here today.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.